My sister didn't just spill vintage red wine down my white silk dress. She looked me in the eyes and told the security guard that the help wasn't allowed to cry in front of guests. But as the wine soaked into my skin, I looked past her shoulder and saw my husband's black SUV pulling into the valet. And I knew that in exactly 60 seconds, my family's entire world was going to go up in flames. My name is Maya Vance. For most of my life, I've been the shadow daughter. The one who stayed in the background while my older sister Chloe soaked up every ounce of my parents' praise like a parched desert. I'm a researcher. My days are spent in soil labs and deep tech greenhouses, trying to figure out how to feed a planet that's running out of resources. It's quiet work. It's humble work. And to my parents, it was a source of deep, burning embarrassment. Before we get into how I finally broke the silence, I want to ask you something. I'm recording this from a small, quiet town, but I know these stories travel across borders. If you're watching this from somewhere far away, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I read every single one. It reminds me that no matter where we are, we all know what it feels like to be overlooked. Chloe was the golden child. She married a man named Julian, a high-level VP at Agro Global, one of the world's largest food conglomerates. Julian drove a car that cost more than my college tuition and wore watches that could feed a village. My parents, Robert and Diane, treated him like royalty. Then there was my husband, Caleb. I met Caleb at a seed convention in a dusty hall in Iowa. He was wearing flannel and work boots, talking about regenerative farming with a passion that made my heart skip. To my family, Caleb was the farm hand. When I brought him home, my mother didn't even offer him a chair. She asked if he had remembered to wipe the manure off his shoes before stepping on the rug. We've been married for 3 years. In those 3 years, my family has never visited our home. They assumed we lived in a shack with a dirt floor. They didn't know that Caleb didn't just work on a farm. He owned Crestwood Industries. He owned the land, the patents, and the very supply chains that Julian's company relied on to stay afloat. Caleb is worth 9 figures. But he's the kind of man who would rather fix a tractor himself than sit in a boardroom. And me? I wasn't just a lab tech. I was the chief science officer of our firm. Together, we were the silent titans of the industry, but we kept it quiet. Caleb always said, "Maya, if they don't love you when you're poor, they don't deserve you when you're powerful." I agreed, but God, it was getting harder to stay silent. The invitations for Chloe and Julian's wedding of the century arrived 6 months ago. It was a $200,000 black tie event at a cliffside estate. My invitation came with a handwritten note from my mother. "Please make sure Caleb wears a suit that doesn't smell like the outdoors. We have very important people attending." A month before the wedding, the cracks started to show. My father called me, sounding frantic. He didn't ask how I was. He went straight to the point. "Maya, the venue is threatening to cancel. Julian's investments are tied up and we're short $25,000 for the final catering and floral deposit. You wouldn't happen to have anything in savings. We'll pay you back once Julian's bonus hits." I knew Julian's bonus wasn't coming. Through the industry grapevine, I knew Agro Global was doing a massive audit because someone had been skimming the expense accounts. But I heard my father's desperate voice and I thought of Chloe. Despite how she treated me, she was my sister. I sent the money anonymously through a shell corporation we use for philanthropy. I told the venue to tell them it was a special vendor credit. Chloe bragged about it on Facebook the next day. The universe just knows I deserve the best. A $25K credit because the venue loves my aesthetic. Caleb saw the post. "Maya, you're too good for them. You know that, right?" "I just want one day where we're all happy, Caleb," I whispered. How naive I was. The day of the wedding arrived, and with it a storm. Not just the one in the sky, but the one brewing in that estate. If stories like this matter to you, the ones about the quiet people finally standing up for their worth, take a quick second to like this video or subscribe to the channel. It tells me there's a community out here that values integrity over image. It really helps me keep sharing these stories with you. We arrived at the estate. Caleb had to stay behind for 20 minutes to take an emergency call from an international distributor. So I walked in alone. I was wearing a simple, elegant white silk gown, not a bridal white but a soft cream. My mother met me at the door. Her face fell. Maya, you look fine, but there's a problem. Julian's CEO decided to show up last minute. We're over capacity in the ballroom. Okay, I said. So where do I sit? She pointed toward the terrace. It was outside. It was raining. A few folding plastic chairs were set up under a leaking canvas tent near the kitchen entrance. You're joking, I said, my voice trembling. Honey, be reasonable, my father said, appearing behind her. Julian's career depends on these people. Your family, you'll understand. Just stay out here until the toasts are over. We'll bring you a plate of leftovers. I stood under that leaking tent for an hour. Servers bumped into me. The rain splashed the hem of my dress. Then Chloe walked out. She looked radiant, but her eyes were cold. Maya, what are you doing? You're blocking the service path, she snapped. I'm sitting where Mom told me to sit, Chloe. In the mud. Don't be dramatic. You're lucky you're even here. Honestly, Julian was worried Caleb would start talking about fertilizer to the CEO and ruin his promotion. She looked at my dress. Is that silk? It's a bit much for a farm girl, don't you think? Before I could answer, she tripped. It was the most calculated stumble I'd ever seen. The full glass of Cabernet in her hand didn't just spill. She flung it. It coated my chest, my stomach, and my dignity in deep staining red. Oh no, she mocked, not a hint of remorse in her voice. Well, I guess you really can't go inside now. You look like a mess. Security, can you escort this woman to the parking lot? She's a disturbance. My parents watched from the glass doors. They didn't move. They didn't say a word. They just turned their backs and went back to the champagne. I was walking toward the gravel path, tears blurring my vision, when Caleb's SUV pulled up. He stepped out, looking like $1 million in a tailored charcoal suit. He saw me, the wet hair, the wine-stained dress, and his face went from calm to lethal in a split second. Maya, what happened? I couldn't even speak. I just pointed toward the ballroom. Caleb didn't wait. He grabbed my hand and marched toward the main entrance. The security guard tried to stop us. Sir, the terrace guests are. Move, Caleb said. It wasn't a shout, it was a command. The guard saw the look in Caleb's eyes and stepped aside. We burst into the ballroom right as Julian was giving a toast to success and the importance of high society connections. The room went silent. Chloe gasped. Maya, I told you to leave. My mother rushed over. Caleb, please. You're making a scene. You're going to ruin Julian's big night. But someone else was moving toward us. It was an older man in a navy suit, the CEO of Agro Global, the man Julian had been terrified of. Caleb? The CEO asked, sounding shocked. Caleb Vance, I've been calling your office for a week. I didn't know you were attending this. The room shifted. You could actually hear the oxygen leave Julian's lungs. I'm not attending, Caleb said, his voice echoing. I was here to support my wife's family, but it seems my wife's family thinks she belongs in the rain, and they think I'm just a farmhand who might embarrass them. Julian stepped forward, sweating. Sir, Mr. Vance, there's been a massive misunderstanding. Maya, honey, why didn't you say? Say what, Julian? I asked, stepping forward, the red wine still dripping from my hem. That the $25,000 credit that saved your wedding came from my poor husband's pocket? That the research papers you cited in your promotion bid were written by me? The CEO's eyebrows shot up. Julian, you told the board that research was yours. It was a collaboration, Julian stammered. No, Caleb said. It was theft. Just like the $40,000 you've been skimming from the Agro Global Logistics Fund to pay for this aesthetic wedding. Chloe screamed. That's a lie. My husband is a success. Caleb pulled a folder from his jacket, the audit report he'd received on the car ride over. He handed it to the CEO. I was going to wait until Monday to sign the merger between my company and yours, but seeing how your VPs treat my wife, I think I'll be taking my business elsewhere. And Julian, don't bother coming into the office Monday. Security will have your things in a cardboard box on the curb. My father tried to grab Caleb's arm. Son, let's talk about this. We're family. Caleb looked at my father's hand like it was a piece of trash. Family sits together at the table, Robert. They don't put their daughter in the mud. Maya, let's go. We walked out. As we reached the car, I heard the music stop. I heard the caterers announcing that the final payment had been voided by the donor. Without that $25,000 I had sent, the contract was null. The lights literally went out on Chloe's wedding. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. 2 days later, my mother showed up at our house, the real house. The estate with the glass walls and the private lake. She didn't come to apologize. She came with a bill. Since you ruined Chloe's life, she said, looking at our home with greedy eyes, the least you can do is pay off the debt Julian left us with. If you don't, I'll tell the press that Caleb Vance is a cold-hearted mogul who destroys his own family for fun. I looked at her. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt nothing. Go ahead, Mom, I said. Call them. But before you do, you should know that I recorded the entire wine incident on the terrace. The security cameras Caleb owns at that venue caught everything. If you go to the press, the world won't see a cold mogul. They'll see a mother who watched her daughter get assaulted and then asked for a check. She turned pale and left. I haven't heard from them since. Chloe and Julian are living in my parents' basement now. Julian is facing a private lawsuit for embezzlement, and Chloe is selling her designer wedding gifts on eBay to pay for his lawyer. Caleb and I were back in the lab. We're back in the soil because at the end of the day, you can't grow anything beautiful in a place built on lies. If you stayed until the very end of this story, thank you. It means the world to me. And if you've ever been the one who was made to feel small, or the one they tried to hide in the back of the room, this space is for you. Your worth isn't defined by the chair they give you. It's defined by the person you are when no one is looking. Don't forget to tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay strong.